Well, I'm joined now by North Belfast MP Nigel Dodds. Thanks for joining us. Should politicians keep out of this and let the judicial system and the courts run its course?
Well, I think there obviously clearly is a principle that politicians shouldn't interfere in the way in which judges come to decisions, the way in which courts operate, because that would be an undermining of the judicial process and the independence of the judiciary and the legal process. But equally, I do think that politicians should have the right to comment and to criticise on the basis of free speech. I mean, there's judges have been handed out by the European Court of Human Rights, and if we weren't allowed to criticise those, mind you, given their decision to give votes to prisoners and all that stuff, we've been in a bad situation. However, I do think there is an issue about whether it's up to the individual judge to bring proceedings. And I mean, Peter Hain has written this book, and there are things in it that I don't agree with, and it's a self-serving book, it's an autobiography. But if the judge feels that there's something libelous or defamatory in it, then I believe he's perfectly open to him to bring proceedings. But the question is, should the state in the 21st century be taking this kind of action? I don't think it should be. I think, as David Davis said there, in 1899, the Privy Council said this is obsolete. In the United States, this concept of scandalising the judiciary and the courts was done away with in the 1940s. Lord Diplock in 1985 said that it was obsolete and rarely used. And I think that it is a bad principle to have an officer of the state, in terms of the judicial appointment that he holds as Attorney General, to be bringing these proceedings in this kind of way. I think it sends out completely the wrong kind of signal in an open democratic society which we have in Northern Ireland. There
appears to be a difference, though, between how some people in the legal world here are viewing this case compared to barristers who've given their opinion, and some other legal professionals over in London.
Well, I think that the general view that I've picked up in Westminster, and I think it's fair to say even here in Belfast, talking to judicial and not judicial but legal figures that I'm talking to, that there is a great sense of caution about whether this is the right thing for the Attorney General to be involving himself in. It's not often that you get an early day motion put down in the House of Commons, as David Davis has done, which gets immediately 120 and more MPs signing up to it, which he has got on this issue, including former Home Secretaries, former Chancellors of the Exchequer and very senior backbenchers in all parties, a totally cross-party motion. And I think it does no good for Northern Ireland. And I would say to John Larkin, the Attorney General, that he should step back, reconsider and withdraw this misconceived motion which he's bringing to the court. I think it's up to the judge, as I say, to bring libel action if he so wishes, and it may well be that he has a case for that. I'm not defending Peter Hain particularly, but I think it's wrong for the Office of the Attorney General to be used in this way to bring an action which is, quite frankly, something that is regarded as obsolete in many other jurisdictions across the world.
Staying with Northern Ireland then, do you think it's a storm in a teacup, or do you think it has damaging ramifications for the future, given that having a locally appointed Attorney General is still relatively new?
I don't think it has major ramifications for devolution. I don't think it has major implications in that sense politically, but I do think it has some implications for the reputation and standing of the Office of the Attorney General. I mean, the Attorney General is a more independent appointment in Northern Ireland than it is, for instance, in England and Wales, where it's a political appointment. The Attorney General is a member of the Cabinet, he's a member of a political party. Here in Northern Ireland, it's actually an independent position. He is the legal advisor to the Executive, but he also has brought and threatened to bring action against departments and so on.
Will you back him? Will the DUP back him for another term?
Well, that remains to be seen. I mean, he has 2 years to go, and I mean, we're a long way out of that, and it'll be a matter for the First Minister and the Deputy First Minister to make that decision at that stage. But I do think he would be well advised now to concentrate on the core responsibilities of his office, which is giving legal advice to the Executive and looking after the way in which the devolved settlement operates, rather than getting involved in this operation, which I don't think has gone down well in Northern Ireland, across the water or anywhere else, and I think will damage his reputation more so than anything else.
OK, Nigel Dodds, thanks very much for joining us.